Alright, y'all. We're back in the garage. So, recently I did like a box opening of some parts. I got a small shipment from Dirty Diesel Customs. They're a huge parts distributor out of Canada. Like, they have anything you could think of for diesels. And something that I had in the box opening that I'm going to be installing in the Cummins tonight is actually the CCV Delete Kit from Dirty Diesels. And I actually already have one of these on my truck, but it's a little bit dirty, and this is one of the things I'd like to do, kind of like a pros and cons installation video, give you guys like all the information that I know about this, and hopefully, you know, what I know will help you, and then maybe you guys will like this as much as I do. So let's go ahead and put this on the comments. A lot of people say CCV just because it's easier, but if you don't know already, CCV is crankcase ventilation filter. I'm going to show you where it is on the dually. So if you guys do have a Cummins and you're watching this, this should be pretty much the same for, I think, 2007, like 7.5 and up. This is my pile. It's a little bit dirty, but right under here is the CCV. If you guys are looking at this, you probably have a little plastic vented piece that goes from here and wraps all the way around so to change the CCV, you're gonna have to pull the engine oil dipstick and then take off. There should be 2 brackets. There should be 4 little like 8mm bolts that hold that plastic piece in. Then you'll pull off this oil cap. You'll take off. You guys will probably have like a wiring harness that wraps around the back of the CCV cover. There'll be a sensor here and probably a wiring harness and stuff right here with 2 studs and some clips, maybe, depending also on what year you have, I think. But once you pull this engine oil cap off and these 8mm bolts, this whole cover right here will pop off and you'll have one of these nice little Cummins Fleet Guard filters underneath. So technically, from the dealer, I think the maintenance interval on these is probably 60 to 70,000 miles, and most of the newer Cummins will have a perform service message that'll show up on the dash, and that's for this filter underneath the top of the valve cover there. So this is the special part. Typically they're at least around $100 or so, but these are fairly important. And I like to keep mine in and keep it freshly changed, so I'll tell y'all why. So this little filter inside of here captures the like really rich oil deposits and stuff that you'll get up here in your crankcase. And normally from the factory, all of that goes through the crankcase filter and then gets rerouted back to the intake. Well, some of that stuff gets really gunky and these do fill up. That's why there's a service interval. So the whole point of the CCV delete is to vent all the crankcase deposits and everything to the atmosphere, so it's not getting rerouted back inside the intake through the engine. So on a factory application, you would have your crankcase ventilation filter in here. This would be the tube, and this tube where I already have my delete, my old one, this tube would come off and it would reroute back into the intake. And the turbo helps kind of pull a vacuum. So it's going to kind of like pull all those gases through and then recirculate and go back through and feed back into the engine. So you can see that this is already venting to the atmosphere. The intake's plugged off. There's nowhere for the crankcase pressure to go other than through this little filter here. So back to the point of getting the CCV delete, I don't want all of the deposits and everything being rerouted back into the engine, so I do vent them through the little filter, but I also am pretty religious about replacing that crankcase filter, because if you guys don't run the CCV and you decide to take that filter out, that is still going to vent into the atmosphere, but now you only have that one filter. So basically all those oil deposits are going through that second filter, which rests right on top of the exhaust manifold, and it can get really messy. So you guys can run without the factory, the OEM crankcase filter, and just use the little filters like this. but you are going to have a little bit more oil drippage. You could possibly smell it through the cap, so I like to recommend leaving the OEM filter in it, but it's also something that's entirely up to you guys. So coming from a factory application, when you guys go to order the CCV Delete from Dirty Diesel Customs, I'll show you guys what you will probably have, just because my truck's a little bit different. You guys are definitely going to want to get a tune if you're going to run a CCV Delete. The ECM is going to know that there's a difference in crankcase pressure, so you'll probably get a code. If you guys are already running a truck with a tune, you probably don't need to do anything. It's probably already set up for it. But if you guys do run into issues and do the CCV Delete, you get like a P04DB or something like that. It might say that there's an intake air leak, or the crankcase pressure sensor notices that there's a difference. The only way to probably fix that will be with a tune that's going to eliminate that voltage to the ECM. It's going to be like, whoop, whoop, something's wrong. So coming from a normal application, when you buy this from the website, and Dirty Diesel's great. They've got like a ton of reviews. I think even like how-to videos, like, and instructions and all that stuff. So you guys don't need me for this. It's pretty self-explanatory. But the kit itself is going to come with this nice little Dirty Diesel filter. It comes with like the nice print on top. It's super clean. I actually like all the parts from this company because they feel like quality parts. They don't feel like chintzy and cheap. This is the hose that's going to go off the top of the valve cover there where the crankcase cover is. So, and they sent you some new hose clamps, which is nice. And then this is the plug that's going to go in the intake. So you guys are going to take that hose off that reroutes back from the crankcase to the intake and then goes back through the engine. So this is to plug that off so you guys aren't sucking air. Let's install. I didn't realize how ugly my intake block off looks, so I'm probably going to take this off and take it to work and get some like fresh hose and put the little block for the intake in there. I'll show you guys. So this is from the intake. This is the hose that you're going to be removing from the intake to the valve cover area, and you can just kind of cut it off, put the block in there, and then squeeze that hose clamp over the end of it, and that keeps your intake, you know, from, you know, sucking air. You won't have any leaks or anything, so that takes care of that, and that's right above the turbo. So you can already see that this one's getting a little bit messy. There would probably be a lot more oil if I was not running a filter inside of here. So what's kind of nice about these filters too is you can kind of wash them with soapy water. So once you guys put them on, you don't really need to buy another one. You can clean them, they're serviceable. But we're gonna throw that one out and throw Dirty Diesel custom ones on. So I'm just going to undo this hose clamp, and my CCV Delete is just going to slide right off. You can already tell it's like pretty sticky and oily, so I'm going to take this thing off. I don't want it. I'm going to throw it in the trash, and I'm going to throw the new Dirty Diesel CCV filter delete kit on. You're going to want to save one of these extra hose clamps for the plug that goes in the intake. So you can go ahead and take one of these off, and then the rest, the one side is going to go on the hard line that comes out of the crankcase filter cover, and the other side is going to go on the actual filter itself. So I'm just going to take my filter, throw it in the hose, make sure it's facing the right way. If you're someone that's doing kind of stuff like this for the aesthetics, so the engine bay looks nice and everything, make sure you have it so you guys can like see the Dirty Diesels. And this is going to sit on the corner of the crankcase cover, just like this. So basically, after you throw those 2 hose clamps on, you're done up here. And I'll show you guys what it looks like from above. So that's just it, guys. It's a pretty easy install, and like I said, the cons pretty much for this situation, if you guys run without a filter, these can get a little bit messy. It'll drip on top of the EGR cooler or the exhaust manifold, and you can smell through the cab. Sometimes it makes a mess. Sometimes, you know, it's just a little bit cleaner to run that crankcase filter in here. Pros, you guys are venting all the oil particles and all the deposits in here to the atmosphere, so it's not being recirculated through the engine. I think these look pretty sharp. They're kind of a go-to for me on all my trucks, and when to do an intake and intercooler piping and stuff, you're already there, and it's a really nice touch to tidy up the engine bay. This is the part number on the front of here. Again, it's just from Dirty Diesel Customs, and it's the CCV Delete Kit. I also have the Dirty Diesel link in my link tree if you guys ever get lost, and most of the time it will apply a nice little discount code for you guys at checkout, so you don't even have to do any work. I have more installation videos and info to share on parts and stuff. I hope you guys enjoy this. Definitely drop in the comments if you guys have any ideas or parts you want to hear about. I love like technical debates and like hearing like points of views and even like personal reviews on parts and installation procedures. So definitely post in the comments or give me guys some like tips or whatever you guys would like to hear back. Thanks, guys.